Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. There's even a brand new Brigadier General tier where you can get a shout out on a Commander's Quarters episode that's dedicated to you. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So this is definitely not an episode that I expected to be making today because, well, I never anticipated that this would happen. Because today's news is something that is absolutely unheard of. It was definitely something that was very unexpected. In fact, it's something that was pretty unbelievable. Are you catching on? Or are you just getting tired of me saying over and over again? Okay, both. Anyways, regardless, let's talk about what today's news is and let's jump into it. So earlier this year, when Wizards was laying out for us what sets are going to be coming next year, one of those sets that was revealed was Unfinity. Now, I don't have the exact wording in front of me, but I believe that the way that this was described is basically an unset that's set in a circus or amusement park in space. So yeah, a really cool concept, and some players obviously really do enjoy unsets and enjoy playing, a limited format with that unset. But when it comes to actual cards from the set having an impact outside of that limited format, well, again, these cards, at least in the past, have been silver border and therefore not legal in any format. So for this reason, I was not anticipating that I would ever be doing any, spoiler episodes or quick takes on uncards because they're not legal in Commander. But with the article on the Wizards website from today, from Mark Rosewater to Unfinity and beyond, well, some things are going to be changing. Now, my apologies for just reading some of this article verbatim, as I know, yes, you could just go find this article yourself and read some of it, but I think all of it is pretty applicable and really explains just the impact of this decision moving forward. So here's what is, in my opinion, the most important part of the article. Here was the most interesting part of the exercise. Over half the cards, including over 1/4 of the rares and mythic cards, were in the black border category. It seemed odd to print a set where half the cards would be perfectly fine to play in casual formats, in other words, ones that didn't allow silver border cards, but make it so they couldn't. That then led us to our big idea. What if there was a way to express silver borderedness that didn't require a silver border? Universes Beyond had started using the security stamp to express information about the card. Normal Magic cards have an oval security stamp, while Universes Beyond cards have a triangle. What if we use the security stamp to indicate what silver border used to indicate? We looked at a bunch of shapes and ended up choosing this one. Yes, in Acorn, squirrels have long been associated with unsets and the shape was distinct. What an Acorn security stamp means is exactly what a silver border used to. This is a card not meant for tournament play and should only be used in casual formats where all players agree to its inclusion. We have dubbed these Acorn cards. If a card has an oval security stamp or no security stamp at lower rarities, it's legal in Eternal formats, which includes Commander, Legacy, and Vintage. We have dubbed these Eternal cards. The security stamp technology would allow us to let the two different types of cards co-mingle in the same set. I should stress that all the cards in this set were designed before this distinction existed, so cards weren't made to be one or the other. We just made cool cards for the set and later divided them into categories. We tweaked a small number of cards that were close to being non-Acorn, but mostly things stayed as originally designed. Let me give some examples using some preview cards. And actually, okay, we'll get to those preview cards here in a second, but I just want to talk about this. So this is actually a pretty huge change because now unsets can essentially have cards that are going to be legal in Eternal formats. And actually, I'm a pretty big fan of this change, though I do want to mention that I really hope that this isn't going to be too confusing, especially for new players. Again, if a player is not aware of this change, then well, they might not understand why this card, which is black bordered, can be used while this one cannot. Obviously, the Acorn symbol is on those cards to distinguish them, but again, if you're not aware or if you don't notice it, well, it's not as obvious as a silver border and basically just screaming, hey, this card isn't legal in the format. So there might be some growing pains with this change, but again, I think overall it is a pretty positive change. Unsets have had many unique and interesting cards in them, but well, those sets have been ignored by many players because, well, the cards can't be played in a format that they might play. This change gives Wizards the opportunity to make cards that are wacky and interesting and unique that can actually work in a format like Commander or Legacy, etc. etc. So rather than a set like Unfinity being pretty much ignored by many players out there, it can be an exciting experience for a lot of players, including Commander players. I mean, I can imagine that there's going to be some really exciting and off-the-wall Commanders, and I'm really excited for that spoiler season now. But now let's jump into those preview cards that are examples of this Acorn technology. So, as you can see on Assembled Ensemble, which is really hard to say, there's an Acorn in the very bottom of the card. So again, this card is essentially a silver border card, not legal in Eternal formats, and for good reason. It's a star 6 clown robot bard with vigilance, but that's not why it's not a legal card. Its power and toughness equal to the number of robots you control, which is also not why it's an illegal card. But it says, whenever you cast a spell with an artifact creature in its art, create a 1/1 white clown robot artifact creature token. So yeah, for the reason that you have to actually identify what kind of things are in the arts of cards, that would make it a silver border-esque card. And then another example of this with that Acorn symbol is Killer Cosplay. It's an equipment that says, when it becomes attached to a creature, choose a creature card name with identical mana cost. That creature becomes a copy of the card with the chosen name until Killer Cosplay becomes unattached from it. So yeah, this one involves just basically choosing any creature in Magic that shares the exact same mana cost, and now the creature in play becomes a copy of it. Yeah, that can be really complex and out there, and yeah, that's definitely a silver border kind of mechanic. It definitely reminds me of the Richard Garfield card, which is very much not a legal card for many reasons. Regardless, now that we've seen the Acorn treatment on two cards that are again that expected silver border type card from this set, how about those cards that don't have that Acorn treatment and are actually going to be legal in Eternal formats like Commander? Well, one of the examples that we got is actually a Commander with the Space Family Goblinson. That's right, we finally have an Uncommander that is legal in Commander. It's a 1/1 Goblin Guest that costs 2 red-green. It has trample as long as you've rolled 3 or more dice this turn, and whenever you roll a die, put a +1 counter on the Space Family Goblinson. So dice rolling is something that used to be pretty much exclusively, to my knowledge, silver border in that, well, no set actually had a dice rolling mechanic up until we finally got to the Dungeons & Dragons set, Adventures of the Forgotten Realms. So in Commander, there are some legal dice rolling cards already, and there's probably going to be even more from this set. So if you've always wanted a Commander that is a Goblin Space Family that focuses on rolling dice, this is the Commander for you! That seems incredibly specific, but I'm sure there are plenty of players out there that are excited about this one. And again, as you'll notice on this card, there's absolutely no Acorn down in that same spot, so yeah, even though this is from an unset, it is legal in Eternal formats. Which again is completely fine with me because again, although this is an off-the-wall card, it is one that's definitely not going to break Commander or do anything that really upsets a game of Commander or throws a game of Commander off completely. But now let's move on to the another non-Acorn card that was shown with Saw in half. Again, on the bottom you can see the security stamp, which is not in the shape of an acorn, but is in that normal shape of the oval. Anyways, it's an instant for 2 and a black that says destroy target creature. If that creature dies this way, its controller creates 2 tokens that are copies of that creature, except their base power is half that creature's power and their base toughness is half that creature's toughness, round up each time. So again, this is a card that is pretty off the wall and definitely something that is expected from an unset, but definitely is also something that could be legal in a format like Commander, and it's completely fine in that format and actually can be really exciting for a lot of decks out there. I mean, my first thought with this card was, hey, wouldn't it be fun to like saw Gray Merchant of Asphodel in half? Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. Basically, if you've got a creature with a very powerful ETB, well, now you're getting 2 of those creatures. Yes, they're going to be smaller, but you still get that ETB. Or maybe they've got death triggers or some really cool abilities, etc., etc., etc. There's a lot of different ways that you can utilize a card like this. And that's not even talking about actually utilizing this to slow down an opponent by taking their best creature and basically splitting it in half. But just make sure by doing so, you're not actually benefiting them by doing that. Regardless, there was one other card that was previewed, and let's talk about that now. And this is actually the participation promo for the release event, which is Water Gun Balloon Game. And like me, you might notice that the security stamp is an oval and not an acorn, so like me, you might think that this, well, is now a legal card in Eternal formats. Which was definitely interesting because this card was actually silver border beforehand, being in a previous unset. But actually, when Mark Rosewater was asked about this on Twitter, well, he said it's Acorn, not Eternal. So there might just be an error in the preview card, and they're going to update that for when the card actually comes out, because if not, that would be extremely confusing to be like, okay, yeah, all the cards from this set that don't have an Acorn are legal. Well, except for this one that should have an Acorn, but it doesn't for whatever reason. That being said, the card being the way that it is actually brings up an interesting question. In this set or in future unsets, is it going to be possible that Wizards actually reprints formerly silver bordered cards into cards that can actually be playable in Commander or other Eternal formats? Again, I'm not saying that they're going to do this for all cards or will do it at all, but there's definitely cards in the past that I've seen in unsets that would be completely fine in a format like Commander, but because, again, all those cards in the set were silver bordered, they were also, not allowed in Commander. For example, I mean, some cards that don't break the format in any way and are completely fine with the way that the format is played are cards like Blast from the Past, Chicken a la King, and Goblin Tutor. Blast from the Past, I mean, was just silver bordered because it's kind of like a joke just stapling on more and more mechanics, but it's definitely not something that would break the format at all, or kind of any format. It works completely fine with it. It's got Madness, Cycling, Kicker, Flashback, and Buyback, and as long as you know what all those things are, then it works just fine. Chicken a la King talks about rolling dices, and again, dices weren't something that was actually legal in any format, again, outside of limited unsets. But now, again, with Dungeons & Dragons Adventures of the Forgotten Realms, dice have been introduced to Magic. And Goblin Tutor is actually one that I want to specifically bring up because Goblin Tutor is actually used by Eric from our playgroup, and yeah, we are completely fine with it because, well, there's nothing broken about it. It says roll a 6-sided die. If you roll a 1, Goblin Tutor has no effect. Otherwise, search your library for the indicated card, reveal it, put in your hand, then shuffle your library. 2 is a card named Goblin Tutor, 3 is an enchantment, 4 is an artifact, 5 is a creature, and 6 is an instant or sorcery. So Eric runs this in his Cranko deck, and yeah, if a 1 or 2 is rolled, obviously nothing really happens because, again, number 1, just nothing happens, and number 2, you have to tutor for a card named Goblin Tutor, and in Commander you can only have one of these, so yeah. It's a 1 mana instant speed tutor that has a 33% chance of failing or a 66% chance of getting you something random. So again, any of these could essentially be reprinted into black border, and they'd be fine. Now, I'm not saying that they will be, but I'm saying that the possibility is there. But yeah, if they do start doing something like this, well, don't expect to see things reprinted into black border like Cheaty Face or Booster Tutor or Flavor Judge. I mean, Cheaty Face says if it's in your hand, you can just sneak it onto the battlefield, and if the opponent catches you, you have to exile it. But if they don't catch you, you're just like cheating a card into play. So yeah, that's not ever going to be legal in a format like Commander, or especially like Legacy, which would be funny if it was, but that's a game-breaking thing. Or Booster Tutor, where you literally, open up a sealed Magic booster pack and then get a card out of that and put in your hand. That's not going to be something that's legal in Commander. Or Flavor Judge, which makes you ask a player outside the game if a card makes sense. And yeah, asking players outside the game or just people outside the game isn't going to be a thing that's legal in formats outside of limited. Regardless, again, with all these news and these previews, it's just exciting to see what the future of unsets and what the possibilities of uncards are going to be. But of course, one more thing before I leave you today, and yeah, with all the other unsets and something that many players are really excited about with unsets, we've got some incredibly exciting lands coming out. So first up, let's start with the space theme basics, and yeah, these are some really beautiful cards, and I can see a lot of players adding these to their decks and enjoying them very much. And actually, there's even more Unfinity basic lands out there, and these have a bit of a more cartoony look, and yeah, I think these are going to be also very popular too. And speaking of popular, Unfinity is also going to be bringing back the Shock lands with brand new art. So yeah, I can see these being in a really high demand. And with the combination of, these awesome lands, as well as obviously the fact that now a ton of the cards in this set are actually going to be legal in formats like Commander, it's, in my opinion, probably going to be the most popular unset that we've seen so far. At least, I would think so. But how popular will this unset be, and what kind of wacky and interesting new cards and new commanders will we see from it? Well, only time will tell. And speaking of time, well, we've actually got a decent amount of time to wait until the spoiler season for Unfinity officially begins. The set, I believe, comes out on April 1st, 2022, so I'd expect, a couple weeks before that. So some point in March, make sure on the lookout for spoilers from this channel, and yeah, some quick takes on some really exciting cards. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.